They're finally making good Blue Eyes White Dragon support after nearly 10 years. And today we're going to take a look at all of the new cards and the crazy combos that you can do with this deck. You're going to want 3 of the brand new structure deck Blue Eyes White Destiny, which includes some insane new cards, including a Link 1 for Blue Eyes. Spirit with Eyes of Blue requires any level 4 or lower dragon or spellcaster monster. If this card's Link summoned, we can search for a copy of Mausoleum of White, and we can also tribute it from the field to special summon back a Blue Eyes monster from our graveyard. We're also getting a retrain of Maiden with Eyes of Blue in the form of Maiden of White. By sending this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, we can activate a copy of True Light directly from our deck. And because we're activating the True Light directly from our deck, we can use the effect immediately without having to set it for a turn. And while she's in the graveyard, if we special summon a copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon, we can bring her back. And then her last effect is the same as Maiden with Eyes of Blue. When she's targeted for an attack or a card effect, we can special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon or a level 1 tuner monster from your graveyard. Now, if you played Blue Eyes back in 2016, you'll remember the Melody of Awakening Dragon. This card previously let us search for Blue Eyes White Dragon and Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon, but now there's a brand new upgrade in the form of Prayers with Eyes of Blue. By discarding a card, we can search our deck for a level 1 tuner monster plus a Spiral Trap card that mentions a Blue Eyes White Dragon. And because this card in itself actually mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon, we can set it off of True Light. It also lets you banish it from your graveyard to target a Blue Eyes White Dragon you control and equip a Blue Eyes monster from your extra deck to it, which fulfills the condition of Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon, which can be special summoned and cheated out by tributing a Blue Eyes monster equipped with a Blue Eyes monster. You can also put Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon into the graveyard pretty easily to set up powerful cards like Dragon Master Magia if you have that much money. And then of course, Majesty with Dragons of White is a trap card that lets us reveal any number of Blue Eyes White Dragons from our hand, field, and our graveyard, and then destroy that many cards our opponent controls non-targeting. Really powerful piece that can be added to the end board, but also searched off of True Light. Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon is a powerful retrain of the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. It has a continuous effect that prevents the opponent from banishing any cards from our graveyard, so that's really good, stopping things like Bestials or anything that might disrupt our graveyard. But more importantly, it has an Omni Negate effect, which says when a card or effect is activated on the field, you can negate that activation. And when this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon back a light dragon monster from your graveyard, so that includes when this card is destroyed off of the effect of Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon that can tag out into this card. And Roar of the Blue Eye Dragons is a normal spell card that can special summon a Blue Eyes monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard, but you have to summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon if you don't already control one. Kind of a nice extender replacement for Return of the Dragon Lords that was previously staple in the deck. So that's about it for the new Blue Eyes cards that we're actually playing, but we are also incorporating the PRIMITE Dragon cards. These cards are really effective for summoning out vanilla monsters from your deck. And of course, PRIMITE Dragon Ether BERYL is a brand new card that does a lot of wonders for this engine. If this card is normal summoned, we can set a PRIMITE Spiral Trap from our deck, and we can also use it to link off directly into Spirit because it's a level 4 or lower dragon monster. And then while it's in the graveyard during our standby phase, if we have a normal monster in our field or graveyard, we can add it back to our hand for a lot of follow-up. And yeah, this is where the deck kind of gets less budget because these guys are like $35 each. And for some reason, the thirsty Yu-Gi-Oh players actually bought out Lordly Load, which was a bulk secret rare at about $5 to $7 and is now selling for $80 to $90. But barring that, the deck is extremely powerful. Let's take a look at the combos. Okay, so the first combo we're going to take a look at is the 1-card PRIMITE Dragon Ether BERYL. This is one of the main starters in the deck. We'll normal summon it and then set a copy of PRIMITE Lordly Load, activate that to add a copy of PRIMITE DRILLBEAM. This is like a Omni Negate that can negate anything while we control a normal monster, in this case Blue Eyes White Dragon. We're going to link it off into our Link 1 Spirit with Eyes of Blue, add a copy of Mausoleum of White, and then we're going to activate the Lordly Load calling Blue Eyes White Dragon to special summon a Blue Eyes from our deck. So from here on in, we cannot use any special summon monster effects for the rest of the turn, but we can, of course, still special summon. So we're going to link off into the Hieratic Seal and then set a copy of PRIMITE DRILLBEAM. And then on our opponent's turn, not only do we get a bounce that's non-targeting, but then we can trigger Seal in the graveyard, summon out Blue Eyes, and because we control a normal monster, we can use PRIMITE DRILLBEAM to negate a face-up card on the field and banish it. Now, unfortunately, this does not bridge us into the Maiden of White, which is the main card that we want to set up True Light, but it's still pretty good off of one card. You know, on the following standby phase, our standby phase, of course, we get the PRIMITE Dragon Ether BERYL back to our hand, and then we can just activate another copy of Lordly Load and continue playing. Now, these are only the basic starter combos for the deck. Guys, I will be doing a lot of research and posting in-depth combos, including how to play around popular hand traps like Nibiru. That will be available in my Patreon. I'm going to post a link to the Patreon below in the description, so definitely go check that out. So the next 1-card combo is Sage with Eyes of Blue. Now, this is a lot better than starting with Ether Dragon BERYL itself because it actually bridges us into Maiden of White. Of course, you do need a discard for all of these combos because you have to discard for prayers, but we can go ahead and add a copy of Maiden of White by normal summoning Sage, discard it immediately to set up the True Light. It's activated directly from our deck, so we can now use that effect this turn. Then we're going to link off the Sage into a copy of Spirit. Spirit's going to add Mausoleum of White. Then from here, we're going to activate Mausoleum of White Light, this has an on-field effect that allows us to target a face-up monster we control, and then we can send a normal monster from our hand or deck to the graveyard and make that monster gain attack. So in this case, we'll set up our Blue Eyes White Dragon in the graveyard, and then we'll use the other effect of Spirit. It contributes itself to special summon a Blue Eyes monster from your hand or your graveyard. So we're going to summon back the Blue Eyes White Dragon, then we're going to trigger the Maiden in the graveyard to bring itself back when you summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon. And this is only special summon, so that's one thing to note. If you ever tribute summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon, you're not going to be able to trigger the effect of Maiden in the graveyard for whatever reason. I don't know why. From here, we're going to link off into our copy of Spirit Dragon. Then we are going to activate True Light to set. Now, this is really key that we do this sequencing specifically, because if our opponent has Ghost Ogre and they actually use it on the True Light, then True Light has a mandatory effect in the graveyard to pop our entire board, but that can actually be negated with Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. This card allows you to, as a quick effect, negate the activation of a effect in the graveyard. That includes our own graveyard, so that's really, really clutch to negate our own negative effect of True Light that would have destroyed our entire board. So that's why you have to use this after we set up the Spirit Dragon. Then we're going to activate a copy of Prayers with Eyes of Blue after setting it off of True Light, and we will discard that one card in our hand, add a copy of Effect Veiler, plus a copy of Majesty with Dragons of White. This is just additional disruption. Now, yes, technically, you could, if you wanted to, set up an additional copy of Spirit Dragon instead by searching another Sage, and then searching a Saga of the Blue-Eyed Dragon to special summon out a Blue Eyes White Dragon. And then because we get an additional normal summon off the Mausoleum of White, you can then search a copy of Effect Veiler, so that'd be a lot stronger. But the issue is that plays much harder into Nibiru, unfortunately. If they Nibiru, we're just left with a Veiler. Whereas in this case, if they do Nib, we lose the Spirit Dragon, but we still get the Majesty with Dragons of White to pop a card on the field, non-targeting, plus we get the Effect Veiler, and then we have follow-up in the form of True Light on our opponent's turn. So I think this is a lot safer into all of the hand traps, especially Nibiru that everyone's playing right now. All right, so the next one card combo you guys got to know is one Maiden of White plus any discard. We're going to go ahead and send the Maiden to set up True Light, activate True Light, and then set a copy of Prayers. Now, obviously, this is very susceptible to like a lot of hand traps, so like Ghost Ogre, obviously, and Ash Blossom on the Prayers, but fortunately, that's the way that you have to do it sometimes in this deck. Gonna activate Prayers, discard a card out of our hand to add a copy of Saga plus Sage. Now, here we're going to normal summon the Sage and add a copy of Effect Veiler. Then we're gonna activate the Saga before linking off into Spirit, and that's very important because Spirit does lock us into dragons only, so we're not gonna be able to trigger the effect of Maiden of White, which is why we don't want to do that immediately. So here, when we summon out the Blue Eyes White Dragon off of the Saga, we can summon out the Maiden. Now, from here, obviously, we're also locked into dragon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, so that's one thing to note. We're going to then go off into Spirit effect to add Mausoleum. Then we're going to banish the Prayers to set up a copy of the Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon and equip it to the Blue Eyes White Dragon. This card has a really cool graveyard effect where when our opponent targets the Blue Eyes with any card effect, we can negate and destroy that card that's targeting it. But most importantly, we're actually using this to fulfill the requirements to summon out the Tyrant Dragon. Now, why this is important is because we have to get the Blue Eyes White Dragon into the graveyard at this moment in the combo in order to make it so we can keep Maiden of White on the field, because she has another effect that when we target her with a card effect, we can resurrect a Blue Eyes White Dragon or a level 1 Light Tuner from our graveyard. So this is the way that you have to do it. If you use Blue Eyes White Dragon here, you would have to synchro off with the Maiden of White to get it off the field, and unfortunately that means Maiden just goes to the graveyard, right? So we want to keep this on the field, which is why we use Tyrant Dragon to substitute while also putting the Blue Eyes White Dragon back in the graveyard. Then we'll use the Spirits effect to attribute itself to resurrect the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Now we're no longer dragon locked. We can activate the copy of Mausoleum of White, target Maiden of White. Remember, this is a quick effect, unfortunately, to special summon back, so our opponent can disrupt us with anything right here. They can chain to Mausoleum, and then we're going to miss the timing for Maiden, so we're not going to be able to use the effect. So that's one thing to note. Really, really important. But if they don't respond to the Mausoleum of White, we can chain the effect of Maiden of White to special summon back a level 1 tuner because she was targeted by a card effect. So that's just a really cool effect that not a lot of people know about. And then we are actually going to resolve the effect of Mausoleum, dump the second copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon from our deck to the graveyard. Then here we have enough materials to just go off into double Spirit Dragon. And of course, this is a pretty nifty setup because on our opponent's turn, we can tribute 1 to summon out a Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. This can negate any card effect on the field. And then of course, we can tribute the other one, go off in Crimson Dragon, summon out the Stardust Cypher Divine Dragon. This can negate any monster effect and then destroy a card on the field. And also has the effect where the first time each card you control will be destroyed by battle or card effect, it's not destroyed. So what that means is during the end phase, because Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon says it tributes itself, and then the monster you special summon is destroyed during the end phase of the turn, Cypher Dragon will actually protect the Ultimate Spirit Dragon from being destructed, and then also it protects our monsters from being destroyed by True Light if our opponent gets rid of that. And because this card has to destroy a card on the field, let's say our opponent activates like something, a monster effect in their hand while not controlling any cards, we're going to have to resolve Cypher Dragon by negating, then we have to destroy a card on the field, including our own, so it can actually protect the card that we would have destroyed with its own effect. All right, with 1 prayers plus any discard, it's also a starter. We discard a card out of our hand and then add a copy of Sage plus a copy of Saga. Then we're going to normal summon the Sage, add a copy of the Maiden, discard it immediately to set up True Light. Then we're going to activate the copy of Saga. Remember, we don't want to go to Spirit yet because we're not locking ourselves into dragons, so we can bring back the Maiden first. Then once we have Maiden set up, we can go off in the Spirit, add a copy of Mausoleum. So a lot of these combos start and kind of extend the same way, but there are some nuances in the sequencing. For example, like when to go off in the Tyrant Dragon, when to go off in the Spirit Dragon. Those things are really key to know because you don't want to lock yourself at the inopportune moment and then you kind of lose from there, right? So from here, we're going to prayers again to set up the Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon and then go off into Tyrant Dragon. Again, getting the Blue Eyes into the graveyard so we can keep the Maiden on the field and then later use Mausoleum plus the Maiden combo to bring something back. Then we use Spirit to bring back the Blue Eyes White Dragon. We can activate Mausoleum, target the Maiden, opponent has no response, chain the Maiden, bring back Sage, and then we can go off and Foolish the last copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon, go off into double Spirit Dragon, so we have the full setup again. And the best part is because we have not yet used True Light, in this combo specifically, we can then set a copy of the Majesty with Dragons of White, which pops 2 cards since we have 2 Blue Eyes White Dragons to show in our graveyard. And this does not target, by the way, so very, very powerful destruction effect alongside the double Spirit Dragon effect to negate cards in the graveyard. And then of course we have the Crimson Lock with the Stardust Cipher and the Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon, plus we have follow-up of True Light. So a really, really strong combo as long as you get past the Ash Blossom choke point. All right, so those are the 1-card combos, but what about the 2-card combos? Well, Sage with Primite is a really, really powerful combo. We go normal summon Primite, of course. We have both access to the Blue Eyes engine plus the Primite engine, which is very powerful. We're going to add a copy of Primite DRILLBEAM, and then we are actually going to link off into Spirit, and then Spirit can add a copy of Mausoleum because Mausoleum has another effect that gives us an additional normal summon for a level 1 light monster, right? Level 1 light tuner. So we're going to normal summon additional Sage with Eyes of Blue and then add a copy of Maiden. Maiden will set up the True Light. Then we can use the effect of the Mausoleum to target the Spirit with Eyes of Blue. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to get back Maiden first, so we're going to have to use this to set up our Blue Eyes. And then we are going to Foolish the Blue Eyes, use Spirit to bring itself back. Then we can bring back Maiden because we're no longer Dragon Locked. Spirit is not on the table anymore. Then from here, we can go ahead and synchro off into our first copy of Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, and then we can activate the Lordly Load, declare Blue Eyes White Dragon, and then summon out a copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon from our deck, the second copy. Then we can go off into our other copy of Spirit Dragon. So here we didn't have to go off into Tyrant Dragon. There's no point wasting those resources from the extra deck if you don't have to. And honestly, the Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon effect in the graveyard is very niche. I don't think there are a lot of cards that actually target that are relevant right now, besides something like a Detonator, but they can just target the True Light anyway, so it doesn't really matter to waste that resource when we can have Trident Dragon in the extra deck still. Then we can use True Light to set up a copy of the Trap, and then we basically have the Trap plus Primite DRILLBEAM now, because on our opponent's turn, we can use True Light to bring back the Blue Eyes White Dragon, and then bring back the Maiden as well, and that turns on the Primite DRILLBEAM because we control a normal monster, so we can safely tag out our cards, not being afraid of cards like Dominus Impulse, of course, because Primite can negate that, and then we can go off into our Ultimate Dragon plus the Crimson Dragon Lock. So really, really clutch in this specific combo. Because of the 2-card combo, we were able to set up both the Trap plus the Primite DRILLBEAM. All right, here's another 2-card combination. Primite Dragon Aether Barrel plus Maiden of White. Similar start. We're going to go off into Lordly Load, add a copy of the DRILLBEAM. But the best part is because we have Maiden of White access already, we can actually use it to set up True Light and then add a copy of Prayers. Prayers can discard the Primite DRILLBEAM, and anytime you can do that, it's really, really clutch because Primite DRILLBEAM is a free discard. This card says during your main phase, if you control a Primite monster, you can reset this card from your graveyard to your field. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to add a copy of Saga plus Sage. Then while we control the Aether Barrel, make sure not to link it off before you set the copy of DRILLBEAM because you have to control a Primite Dragon monster. So we're going to activate DRILLBEAM to set it, and then we are going to link off into the Spirit. So make sure that sequencing is remembered because you might forget, and then the DRILLBEAM is just lost forever because there's no way we're getting this Aether Barrel back for the rest of the turn, right? So make sure you guys set that. Then we're going to set up the Mausoleum of White, additional normal summon the Sage, add a copy of Effect Veiler because we already have access to the Maiden, so we don't have to search it off of the Sage. Then we are going to activate the Saga, bring out the first copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon, and now we actually have to use the Prayers here just because the way it goes right now, we're Dragon Locked, and we have to get this Blue Eyes White Dragon into the graveyard later on to bring back off of Maiden. It's really, really important in the right sequencing that we go for the Tyrant Dragon. So you have to kind of lap these combos to know when to go for Tyrant Dragon and when not to, because this is a really valuable resource. If we can keep it in the extra deck, we would want to, but in this specific combo, we cannot. Spirit Dragon, use the effect, bring back the Blue Eyes White Dragon, bring back Maiden. Now from here, we can go off into our first copy of Spirit Dragon, and then we can target the Maiden of White using the Mausoleum of White, chain the effect to bring back the Blue Eyes White Dragon. This is really important again with the Trident Dragon, because if we didn't go off into the Trident Dragon, then that means that we would have kept the Blue Eyes here, which means that the Maiden of White could only resurrect the Sage, which is not what we want. Here we want to set up the Heretic Seal plus double Spirit Dragon, and if we brought back a level 1 tuner, you can't make Seal because the Spellcaster and a Dragon is incompatible. You need 2 dragons specifically, so that's why we sequenced it like that. Resolve Mausoleum, send a second copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon, summon out the second copy of Spirit Dragon. Now Lordly Load can summon back the other copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon. Remember, this Tyrant Dragon is here. If you didn't make it, it would be a Spellcaster monster, which is bad news. Now, in that case, you could also make a third copy of Spirit Dragon if you wanted to, if you play 3 instead of Seal, but personally, I think Seal is a lot better because it's a non-targeting disruption. Plus, you can search for Bestial Magnemite and then use the end phase effect to search for another copy of a dragon, so you have a lot of follow-up. Plus, this diversifies a lot of our disruptions, right? You might not have enough things to bring out off of Spirit Dragon to actually disrupt your opponent, but Heretic Seal is a hard disruption, which we really, really value in this metagame. So on our opponent's turn, we have the same setup. We have True Light to bring back the Blue Eyes White Dragon plus Maiden. We have the Primate DRILLBEAM to negate something. We can set up the Crimson Lock here, and we have Seal on top of all of that. So this is a really, really powerful combo. The fact that we started off with a Maiden plus the Primate Dragon was just access to basically everything. Okay, last 2-card combo is Dragon BERYL plus the Prayers with Eyes of Blue. Normal summon, gonna set up the load, add DRILLBEAM, discard it off of Prayers, and then add Sage plus Saga. Remember to set the DRILLBEAM before linking off the Aether Barrel, because we do control a Primate Dragon monster. Then we're gonna go off into the Spirit Search Mausoleum, set that up, additional normal summon the Sage, dump a copy of the Maiden of White, search it, dump it, and then set up the True Light. Then activate the copy of Saga. Remember, here, though, we're locked under Dragon, so we cannot actually summon out the Maiden of White. We could not get rid of the Spirit easily because we didn't have a Blue Eyes White Dragon in the graveyard, and we want to hold the Mausoleum of White effect so we can use it later on Maiden of White to get an additional body. So that's why the sequencing is very important in these combos. Next, we're going to use Prayers because we do have to get this Blue Eyes into the graveyard in this combo again. So we're going to set up the Tyrant Dragon here. Going to use the effect of Spirit to then bring back that Blue Eyes White Dragon. We're no longer Dragon locked. Bring back that Maiden, and then we can go off into our first copy of Spirit Dragon. We can use the effect of the Mausoleum, target the Maiden, chain the effect of Maiden to bring back the Blue Eyes White Dragon, and we can go off into our second copy of Spirit Dragon. And finally, activate Lordly Load and bring out a Blue Eyes White Dragon from our deck. Then we can go off into the Heretic Seal. So again, sequencing, really important here, guys. Remembering when to use Tyrant Dragon and when not to. And then last but not least, True Light will set a copy of Majesty. So this is one of the most powerful combos this deck can set up. We have multiple disruptions. We have an Omni Negate, we have a bounce non-targeting, we have a destruction for 2 that's non-targeting as well, that's 3 disruptions, plus we have 2 graveyard negates, that's 5 disruptions, and then we can of course tag out into the Omni Negate Ultimate Dragon, that's 6 disruptions, plus Stardust Cipher is 7 disruptions, and we get insane follow-up, right? So this is a lot off of the Blue Eyes deck. So here's an example of the deck recipe that you guys can use. Obviously this deck can play a lot of hand traps, which is really nice. Like you can play from 16 to even 20 hand traps, all the good ones. You can also play Dominus Purge. This card stops your opponent from adding a card from their deck to the graveyard and also destroys that card if you have another trap in your graveyard. Best of all, the trap cards are very important in this deck because Tyrant Dragon has an effect. After this card battles, you can actually target a trap card in your graveyard and reset it to your table. So in the grand game, resetting Dominus Purges or resetting Imperms is just broken. You can also reset hard trap cards like Solemn Judgment or Solemn Strike, even like continuous trap cards like Skill Drain. You can also set D-Barrier, just loop them over and over again. So very, very powerful card. And the Bestials are also very good. Magnemite, you can summon it off of Seal, search something in the end phase, and the rest of the deck is fairly standard, just maxing out on all of the best engine cards. You need 2 Blue Eyes because you just need 1 in deck to bring out at a given moment, and then having 2 Blue Eyes to show off of Majesty is good enough. You don't want to draw them because they're kind of bricks. Also, True Light, you don't want to draw, as you technically have like 3 bricks in this deck you don't really want to see. Maxing out on basically everything. We just need 1 Primite DRILLBEAM plus the 3 Lordly Load and the Aether Barrel for the combo. Don't really need any other cards. 1 Saga for the combos, and then Pot of Prosperity just for consistency. Now, the extra deck is up for debate. You guys can maybe play around. There are cards like Selene Access Code I know you can play. You can also play other card targets for the Spirit Dragon to go off into, maybe something like Black Rose Moonlight Dragon that allows you to bounce something. Azure Dragon is kind of neat in that it protects your dragons from being destroyed by the effects of the Spirit Dragon in the end phase as well. So as long as you can prevent this from being destroyed by battle, basically all of your dragons cannot be destroyed, nor can they be targeted by card effects, and then during the standby phase, you can resurrect Blue Eyes and continue playing. There's also the Indigo Blue Eyes White Dragon Dragon, which I believe is an Xyz card. Not really needed in the deck, but that's something you can consider. So the deck is very standard. It's a control variant of Blue Eyes White Dragon. You're just setting up the Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon and then having a bunch of hand traps in your hand to control the game and try and win from there. Those are the combos I had for you guys today. What do you guys think of the deck? Is it strong enough to compete with the metagame? Let me know in the comments below.